Hi, everyone. Well, that was exciting. Facebook seems to be down for the first time in my memory. So our live event has had to be moved over here to YouTube. I will upload it to the Facebook page later so that everyone will be able to see it who wasn't able to connect with us on Facebook this afternoon. But in the meantime, here we are over on YouTube, and the show will go on. So today I'm sharing with you our presentation on spring training, how to ease back into a fitness routine, and reach your fitness goals and all the various considerations you should make for the various joints in your body. So give me a moment to figure out YouTube so I can share my screen with you and you'll be able to see my slides, okay? All right, well, maybe one of you can post in the comments exactly how to share my screen with you, but it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to figure it out in these next couple of minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on with our presentation, again, called Spring Training. So this is our Spring Training Jumpstart. The weather's finally getting warm. You wouldn't know it by my turtleneck here, but we do have a little bit of warmth in the air, and the sun's shining a little. So hopefully we are not too far away. And at least if you go out, you don't have to have on quite so many layers, and it's safer to exercise outside. So if it hasn't been the winter you planned and you've been a little more sedentary than you had hoped for, or just were kept inside on days that you thought you'd be able to get out because it was snowier and icier, I'm just going to encourage you to take it slow. Give your body time to understand when you're overdoing it. It can take up to 24 hours to feel the effects of exercise. So if you really just go at your full capacity and it's more than what you should be doing, you might not know it until it's too late and you're experiencing the effects of over-exercising. So identify a level of exercise that results in no more than 2 days of soreness after the activity. If you do the activity, you're not sore for more than 2 days. Next time you can do more, but easing in will keep you from then having to stop exercise because you overdid it. And then increase slowly from that baseline. A good guideline is about 10% a week from there. When you are transitioning an exercise, resuming exercise after being sedentary or increasing your mileage or your speed, your injury risk starts to go up. So if you do that process more slowly in a more graded way and avoid training errors, you can decrease your risk for experiencing an injury during exercise transitions. When you're doing exercise, make sure that you have a minimal level of stability in your lower back, your shoulder blades, your hips, and your ankles. Break movements down into smaller steps, partial ranges. If you're working on squats, if you're working on lunges, do part of the motion, then increase the distance that you're doing, and perform it more slowly so that you can make sure that you're not substituting and compensating in a way that's going to injure you. And make sure you're breathing. Every time you breathe, inhale, exhale gives you an opportunity to re-engage your core. Any initial abdominal and core exercises should focus more on stability before you add movement. So exercises such as being in hands and knees or lying on your back where you're moving your arms and legs, if you're stable there, then you can start to add additional movements of the trunk during your core exercises. And then as you're ready to progress, then you start using larger ranges, increase your resistance, and then that's a good time to start thinking about incorporating more of a balance challenge with the exercise or even rotational challenges. How much exercise? What's the right amount? Well, the American Heart Association recommends 150 minutes of moderate activity or 75 minutes of vigorous activity each week. So Monday through Friday, that means 30 minutes of moderate activity, or you can exercise a little less frequently if you're participating in vigorous activity. If you already have high blood pressure or high cholesterol because you haven't, you're either prone to it due to hereditary reasons, or you have not been as active as you would like or has been recommended for you, you're going to want to increase to or start off at about 40 minutes of vigorous activity 3 to 4 times per week is what's recommended if you're already basically experiencing some cardiovascular challenges related to a sedentary lifestyle. When it looks at resistance training, exercises that incorporate lifting weight or pushing against a resistance, the American College of Sports Medicine recommends exercise 2 to 3 times per week. In addition to participating in regular fitness activities or exercise, you should also have a general goal of decreasing your time of being completely sedentary. When you sit a lot, it's associated with decreased production of enzymes that help you regulate your triglycerides and your cholesterol. So just getting up and moving more frequently has positive effects for your health. All right, you're ready to start exercising. So let's start with a warm up when you're getting ready to exercise. This is a light activity to prime your cardiovascular and musculoskeletal systems. And dynamic stretching is a great way to get started. It both warms you up and starts getting your joints to go through their full range of motion before you start an activity. So dynamic stretching is a great way to start. And I'll post some additional examples of dynamic stretching on the event after we're finished. Strength and resistance training, the big benefits of that is it's going to increase your muscle mass, which will boost your metabolism, making it easier to maintain your weight or lose weight. It will increase your strength and balance for functional activities, as well as support your bone density. And it can prevent or slow age-related muscle loss. We are all losing muscle mass as we age, whether we're sitting still or whether we're moving. But if you add resistance exercise into your program, you can slow that down and maintain your muscle mass for more effectively. The types of resistance exercise are many. You can do body weight resistance exercises. You can utilize resistance bands and tubing, or use specialized equipment. And then free weights and weighted objects like balls and kettlebells are also really effective for resistance training. You should know sort of what you're looking for in form, and we're going to go through that a little bit here in a minute to make sure that you're doing exercises that are loaded with resistance with the correct form. How many repetitions is the right number of repetitions? Well, it depends on your goal, but generally you want to work towards what we call controlled fatigue. So you want to understand the exercise form. How much weight can you lift while maintaining that form? And then how many repetitions can you perform with that form with that level of weight? You want to do 2 to 3 sets per form to controlled fatigue, and then give yourself a day to recover between resistance exercise. When you're performing exercises, take a look at the different parts of the body to see how you can keep them safe. So let's talk about the neck a little bit. That's your cervical spine. It's made up of 7 joints. Your goal is to maintain a neutral posture during exercise with your ears over your shoulders, and that's going to protect your neck joints. So you don't want to shrug when you're performing exercises, and you don't want to stick your chin out as you do exercises. There are muscles that help support this posture, and they're the deep neck muscles under your chin, your shoulder muscles, and your shoulder blade muscles all have an impact on keeping your neck stable and safe. To talk a little bit about the shoulders, we're talking about a ball and socket joint. And your arm is really connected to the body through the shoulder blade and the collarbone. So keeping your shoulders back and down keeps the shoulder joint in a safe position. If you shrug or round your shoulders during exercise, you're putting your shoulder in a position that's not efficient and where the muscles can't work very effectively. The thumb up position is always preferable to the thumb down position in exercise, because thumb down position, or even in sometimes just a flat position, can compress the muscles of the rotator cuff or the tendons of the rotator cuff. Muscles that support your shoulders are rotator cuff muscles and shoulder blade muscles. And when you're performing upper extremity sports or activities that require your upper body, you also get a lot of power that comes from your legs and your core. So it's not just about the shoulder. All right, so when we look at your lower back, so we've protected the neck, we've protected the shoulder. Now onto your lower back, you're really talking about 5 joints, and that connects the pelvis to the rib cage. So positioning those 2 areas in neutral will keep the lumbar spine in a neutral position. A small amount of forward tilt in the pelvis is normal, but you want to avoid excessive tipping forward or tucking of the tailbone down. And then stacking the rib cage vertically over the pelvis is the ideal position for exercise, as well as the rest of the time. Most exercises call for the low back to stay in neutral during movement. There's some exceptions, and you want to avoid tilting or dropping the pelvis to one side during exercise. So if as you're running or standing on one leg, the pelvis is tipping and tilting down, which you'll notice because the waistband of your pants won't be level anymore, that can put a lot of stress on your lower back. And the same principles that protect the lower back also protect the hip. And the muscles that support these areas are your abdominal muscles, your back muscles, and your hip muscles. Lots of us have knee pain or experience knee pain when we exercise. It's important to remember that knees are really hinge joints. They're only supposed to bend in one direction. So at the knee, you want to avoid rotational forces and let any types of rotational movements happen more from the hips and from the foot and ankle as needed. You want to keep the knees aligned with the hip and ankle. If you look down, they shouldn't be rotated in towards each other or rotated out away from each other. And your knees are really supported by the strength of your hips and your buttocks, the quadriceps muscle, the hamstrings, as well as the foot and ankle muscles. Help keep your knees lined up right where they should be. Talking about the feet now, your foot position is going to be affected by your foot type. So a flat foot will require more support, and you should really think about what exercises could I do to strengthen my foot. A high-arched foot requires more cushioning, an emphasis on foot mobility because you want better shock absorption, because some of the shock absorption that you would get from the foot and the foot joints and the foot muscles is not happening. When you're walking and running and doing activities that require mobility, you want to focus on rolling over the big toe instead of turning out the foot or pushing off the side of the foot. Muscles that support the foot. Well, you have a lot of internal foot muscles that kind of get neglected. There's actually 5 layers on the bottom of your foot, and they're really structured pretty similarly to the muscles of your hand. So if you think about everything your hand can do, you have that many muscles also built into your foot, and they're intended to help you support your arch. You also get good support for your foot and ankle from your lower leg muscles, your calf, and then there's also a lot of evidence that demonstrates that having strong hips is really good for protecting your feet. So sometimes if someone comes to us and they're having foot pain, we may need to focus more on actually strengthening their hips before we even talk about what's going on in their feet. All right, let's talk about some specific sports. You're ready to get out there. Let's talk about running. So most runners actually live longer than non-runners and may be less likely to develop a disability. And there we have my little puppy here at home sharing how much he enjoys running, I think. Runners versus non-runners do not have an increased risk of arthritis of the knee, and the risk is even lower if you have proper running form. However, the knees are the joint that will have the greatest risk for injury with running. And front of the knee pain, called patellofemoral pain, affects about 20% of all runners. So what's the best way to return to running? First, establish a base of fitness starting with a run-walk program. Don't increase the speed or the distance until this is established. Don't increase your weekly mileage by more than 10% in a week. Take a day off between runs for recovery. You can do another low-impact activity. It's fine to still be active on that day, but just give yourself some time to recover from the run. And then special considerations by population. For if you're a new runner or you're a returning runner over the age of 30, and new moms should take the running progression slowly, particularly slowly. And then the Achilles tendon and calf injuries are more susceptible to injuries in runners over age 40. And stress fractures in the foot are more common in runners under age 30. So just sort of knowing sort of where you fall, and if you start to feel a little ache or pain or a twinge in some of those areas, it's telling you to back off, reassess your training program, or consider seeing your healthcare professional or physical therapist. Cycling, we're finally getting to where it's time to get the bikes out and get your bike maintained. But know that a proper bike fit can also ensure a comfortable ride and decrease your risk for injury. So if we're thinking about recreational riding, the trunk will typically be more upright. The shoulder will be at an angle of about 80 to 90 degrees. And when the leg is fully extended, the knee should be slightly bent. If you're fitting your bike, it's a road bike, and you're looking to be able to ride on a road bike, then you want to incline the trunk forward at about 30 to 40 degrees, and your shoulder angle will open up a little bit to be 90 to 100. When you're cycling, you should wear stiff-soled shoes. Even if you're not a cyclist who clips into your pedals, getting actual cycling shoes that are appropriate and can go on a flat pedal is usually a stiffer sole and will help protect your feet. and allow you to be more efficient in your push. And then work towards pedaling 80 to 90 revolutions per minute in order to decrease your injury risk. Another great form of activity, physical activity, is simply walking. It's a great activity for focusing on your form, focusing on your ability to breathe while exercising, and building up your endurance. So don't think that walking isn't adequate exercise. It's a really great form of moderate physical activity. One suggestion I make to many of my patients is that they consider Nordic walking. It actually burns about 30% more calories, and with every step you engage the core sort of naturally, and it promotes a proper reciprocal walking form that can carry over to lots of other activities and be good for you. If you're looking to avoid impact, the elliptical is a great form of exercise. It minimizes, when you're on the elliptical, your goal is to minimize vertical movement and horizontal movement. Really, it's imagining that you're keeping your trunk in one position and your legs are just moving right underneath your body. Everything else is staying pretty stable. Now, there is some correlation between elliptical use and low back pain. So if you have low back pain, it might not be the best choice for you. Consider starting with legs only and holding on versus using the arms. And once you've mastered the form, then go ahead and add the arms in. The same concept of breaking things down into steps, mastering the form, and then from there, adding in additional pieces. Really popular right now continue to be boot camps and high intensity interval training. If you are a new exerciser, make sure you let your instructor know and let him or her know about any limitations. Again, let them know that you're going to be focusing on your form, which might mean you're slowing down the speed. It can be hard in those classes because they're really pushing you to your maximum. But especially as you ease into it, make sure you're asking for modifications and slowing things down and kind of checking the ego at the door and really mastering it so that you'll be able to participate for a really long time. One check I always ask my patients to do if they're participating in these exercises is make sure they can still breathe while they're doing them. If they find that their breathing is very shallow and that they're not really taking a deep breath, then they might need to slow things down a little bit. You can always start with lighter weights and then just recognize that any symptom that you might have of urinary leaking means that you're stressing your pelvic floor throughout and you're not stabilizing well. So time to back off, slow it down a little bit, see if you can control the pelvic floor and the core before you start increasing the speed or the weight. Give yourself a recovery or a lighter day after an intense session. And then just know that with really intense workouts, there have been some cases of what they call muscle death or rhabdomyolysis after extreme workouts. And it's actually a condition after extreme exercising that can be fatal. It's not very common. It's pretty rare, but it's a good reason to ease back into your fitness routine. So what is a normal exercise response? Well, generally, if you have some soreness and stiffness that lasts 24 to 48 hours after the activity, you're right on track and you're right there with everybody else getting some delayed onset muscle soreness. Recovery tips, there's not much that's been demonstrated to help, but might make you feel better if you try a little bit of foam rolling and self-massage techniques. We actually offer a class at Physio Partners in Lakeview on Saturday mornings and in the Loop office on Wednesday, Thursday after work. It's called Move Free, and it'll take you through all of the foam rolling and self-massage techniques followed with some nice stretches. And then also static stretching you want to perform with 30 to 60-second holds. And then give yourself one day off from your exercise program every week. A day of rest and recovery once per week really is associated with decreased risk for injury. All right, what else should you be thinking about? Well, the most important thing is to be consistent. Otherwise, every time you go to exercise is like the first time. So it's one of the most important components of engaging in an exercise routine that will give you results and help you avoid injury. Schedule your exercise in every week and plan for other ambient physical activities on days when you can't exercise. You want to make sure that you're hydrating. Rehydrate during and after the activity with particular attention paid while exercising in hot and cold. And then also being adequately hydrated assists in removing waste products and as well as to maintaining your temperature and healthy joints. Cross-training is really effective in helping you focus on different muscle groups, and also participating in different types of activities can help prevent imbalances that can develop. If you're always doing the same activity, it can be difficult to avoid developing imbalances in your posture or your flexibility or your strength. And then give your body time to recover and get enough sleep. A minimum of 7 to 8 hours per night is the prime time for your body to recover and repair your musculoskeletal system. All right, how do you know when you're in trouble? You've overdone it. Well, some of the flags are pain that doesn't go away set within several hours after an exercise. So on a pain scale of 1 to 10, if it exceeds a 3 while exercising, you're probably pushing it a little too hard. If you have sharp pain, that's not a normal exercise response. Pain that wakes you up at night, persistent pain that gets worse as you exercise or move, and pain that persists in the same area every time you exercise. These are reasons to think about seeking a consultation from your doctor or your physical therapist. All right, thank you so much for joining me. Just recognize that none of the information I've presented today is intended to be medical advice. It's just educational, allowing you to start your new spring exercise routine safely so that you don't have to see us over here at Physio Partners. In addition to the Move Free class that I mentioned, we also have personal training to help ease you back into your activity. Working with a physical therapist for an annual physical therapist exam can help you pick up on issues before they ever escalate into an injury and identify what things you should be focusing on in a fitness routine. We have Pilates instructors and we have small group versions of all of those activities. So if you go to our website, you can see what's happening each week at Physio Partners, where we can help you on your way to starting your spring training program. All right. Sorry about the technical difficulties. So glad you're able to make it. And hopefully you will exercise happily from here on out. Good night.